My name is Elena Harper, and the first time I met Adrianne Vale, I forgot how to breathe. Not metaphorically. Literally. I was standing in the elevator of the 22nd floor of Vale Media Group, clutching a folder of campaign drafts so tightly my fingers had turned white. I had rehearsed my presentation the entire subway ride, whispering sentences under my breath like prayers. The elevator doors opened, and she stepped in. Tall. Dark hair pulled into a sleek knot. A charcoal suit that looked like it had been designed specifically for her body. Her presence carried something sharp and magnetic, like the moment before lightning strikes. I knew who she was. Everyone in the building knew who Adrianne Vale was. Founder. CEO. 41 years old. A woman who built a digital media empire from nothing but ruthless intelligence and impossible ambition. She glanced at me. Just once. But the way her eyes paused on my face made my pulse stumble. Not curiosity. Recognition. The elevator started moving. Neither of us spoke. The silence stretched long enough that I became painfully aware of everything: the quiet hum of the elevator cables, the faint scent of her perfume, something dark and warm like cedarwood. Then she said quietly, "Creative department?" Her voice was calm, smooth, and deeper than I expected. "Yes," I said quickly. "Strategy team." She nodded once. But when the elevator reached the executive floor, she didn't leave immediately. She turned to me again. "Your name?" "Elena." She held my gaze. "Interesting." Then she stepped out. And I stood there frozen, wondering why my heart was racing like I had just run up 20 flights of stairs. 2 weeks later, I found out. Because I got an email. From her assistant. "Adrianne Vale would like to review your campaign proposal personally." My stomach dropped. The executive floor felt like a different world. Quiet. Carpeted. Windows stretching across the skyline. Her office doors were open when I arrived. She was standing by the window when I walked in, looking out over the city like she owned every building in sight. Maybe she did. She turned slowly. Her eyes landed on me again. And something about the way her expression shifted made my breath catch. "Close the door, Elena." I did. She gestured to the chair in front of her desk. "Sit." I sat. She walked around the desk and leaned against the edge instead of sitting. Which meant she was close. Very close. Close enough that I could see the tiny gold flecks in her dark eyes. "I read your proposal," she said. My hands tightened in my lap. "And?" I asked carefully. She studied me for a moment, then said quietly, "You think differently than everyone else here." I blinked. "That's good." Her lips curved slightly. "It's dangerous." My pulse jumped. She leaned forward just a little. "Tell me something, Elena." "Yes." "Why are you working 3 levels below where you should be?" I stared at her. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." The silence between us suddenly felt electric. She straightened. "I want you on my strategy team." My heart stopped. "That's not possible." "Everything is possible," she said calmly. "Especially when I decide it is." Working for Adrianne Vale was nothing like I expected. She was demanding. Intense. Brilliant in ways that made everyone else in the room feel slow. But the strange part was this. She noticed everything. Every idea. Every hesitation. Every time I challenged her. And she liked it. One night we were the last 2 people left in the office. The city outside the glass walls shimmered with lights. We had been arguing about a campaign strategy for an hour. "You're overthinking the audience," she said. "No," I replied. "You're underestimating them." She looked at me. Really looked. And then she laughed softly. "You're stubborn." "So are you." Her smile faded. But her gaze didn't. "You're not afraid of me." I shrugged. "Should I be?" She stepped closer. Too close. "Most people are." Her voice had dropped. Something warm spread through my chest. "Maybe I'm not most people." Her eyes darkened. For a moment neither of us moved. Then she said quietly, "Dinner tomorrow night." I blinked. That wasn't a question, was it? No. Dinner lasted 4 hours. It started professional. It did not stay that way. We talked about childhoods. About ambition. About loneliness. And the strange weight of being the person everyone else expects to have the answers. When we walked out of the restaurant, the night air was cool. We stood on the sidewalk. Too close again. She looked down at me. Elena. Yes. Do you know what you're doing to me? My heart started racing. No. Her hand lifted slowly. She brushed a strand of hair away from my face. The touch was light, but it sent warmth through my entire body. Her fingers lingered. And suddenly the world felt very quiet. You make me forget how careful I usually am. My voice came out softer than I expected. Is that bad? Her thumb traced lightly along my jaw. Her eyes dropped to my lips. Very. I should have stepped back. I didn't. Her hand slid gently behind my neck. And then she kissed me. Slowly. Not rushed. Not uncertain. The kind of kiss that felt like a question and an answer at the same time. My hands found the front of her coat without me thinking. The kiss deepened. Warmer. Closer. When she finally pulled back, her forehead rested lightly against mine. You are going to complicate my life, she murmured. I smiled breathlessly. Too late. Loving Adrianne Vale was not simple. She was powerful, brilliant, and sometimes impossible. But she never asked me to be smaller. Never asked me to dim the parts of myself that made me strong. One night months later, standing on the balcony of her apartment overlooking the river, she pulled me into her arms and said quietly, "You changed the way I see the world." I looked up at her. How? Her hand rested against my cheek. You're the first person who ever made me want something more than success. I felt my chest tighten. What do you want now? Her thumb brushed my lips. You. Then she kissed me again. Soft. Slow. Certain. Like a promise. 6 months later she proposed. Not with a grand gesture. Not with cameras. Just the two of us in the kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning. She placed a small velvet box on the counter, looked directly into my eyes, and said, "Marry me." I didn't even pretend to hesitate. Yes. We got married the following spring. Small ceremony. 30 guests. The city skyline behind us. When she slipped the ring onto my finger, her hands were steady. But her voice wasn't. And I realized something in that moment. Adrianne Vale, the woman who intimidated boardrooms and billionaires, was nervous. Because loving someone completely is the bravest thing anyone can do. Even for the most powerful woman in the room. Marriage didn't make loving Adrianne Vale easier. If anything, it made everything more intense. Because when you love someone powerful, someone brilliant, stubborn, and fiercely independent, love isn't quiet. It's electric. And sometimes it burns. 3 months after our wedding, the agency landed the biggest contract in its history. A global luxury brand. 10 countries. Hundreds of millions in revenue. The board was ecstatic. Adrianne was focused, which meant she barely slept. I watched it happen slowly. Late nights at the office. Coffee instead of dinner. Emails at 3 in the morning. She wasn't ignoring me. She just disappeared into work the way brilliant people sometimes do, like the world outside their mind fades into silence. One night, I found her in her office at nearly midnight. The entire building was dark except for the light spilling from beneath her door. She was standing by the window, staring out at the city. Her jacket lay on the chair behind her. Her sleeves were rolled up. You're the first person who ever made me want something more than success. I felt my chest tighten. What do you want now? Her thumb brushed my lips. You. Then she kissed me again. Soft. Slow. Certain. Like a promise. 6 months later she proposed. Not with a grand gesture. Not with cameras. Just the two of us in the kitchen on a quiet Sunday morning. She placed a small velvet box on the counter, looked directly into my eyes, and said, "Marry me." I didn't even pretend to hesitate. Yes. We got married the following spring. Small ceremony. 30 guests. The city skyline behind us. When she slipped the ring onto my finger, her hands were steady. But her voice wasn't. And I realized something in that moment. Adrianne Vale, the woman who intimidated boardrooms and billionaires, was nervous. Because loving someone completely is the bravest thing anyone can do. Even for the most powerful woman in the room. Marriage didn't make loving Adrianne Vale easier. If anything, it made everything more intense. Because when you love someone powerful, someone brilliant, stubborn, and fiercely independent, love isn't quiet. It's electric. And sometimes it burns. 3 months after our wedding, the agency landed the biggest contract in its history. A global luxury brand. 10 countries. Hundreds of millions in revenue. The board was ecstatic. Adrianne was focused, which meant she barely slept. I watched it happen slowly. Late nights at the office. Coffee instead of dinner. Emails at 3 in the morning. She wasn't ignoring me. She just disappeared into work the way brilliant people sometimes do, like the world outside their mind fades into silence. One night, I found her in her office at nearly midnight. The entire building was dark except for the light spilling from beneath her door. She was standing by the window, staring out at the city. Her jacket lay on the chair behind her. Her sleeves were rolled up. Her hair slightly messy, like she'd run her fingers through it too many times. I leaned against the doorway. You know normal humans sleep sometimes. She didn't turn. I'm aware. Then why aren't you doing it? Now she looked at me. Her eyes softened immediately. Because this project is complicated. I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. So am I said. A faint smile touched her lips. You're not complicated. Adrianne. She sighed. Then ran a hand through her hair again. This contract will change everything for the company. I crossed the room slowly. And what about us? Her eyes flickered. That was the first crack. You think I'm neglecting you. I think you're forgetting something. Her voice softened. What? I reached for her hand. She let me take it. That you're allowed to want more than success. Her fingers tightened around mine. For a moment she looked almost vulnerable, which was rare. Dangerously rare. I've always been afraid of losing what I built, she admitted quietly. You won't, I said. But you might lose something else. She looked at me carefully. What? I stepped closer. So close I could feel the warmth of her body. Me. Her breath caught. And suddenly the space between us felt charged. She lifted her hand slowly and brushed her fingers along my cheek. You think I would ever choose business over you? I didn't answer. Her eyes darkened slightly. Then she pulled me closer by the waist. You have absolutely no idea what you do to me, Elena. My heart started racing. Oh, I think I do. Her lips curved. Prove it. The challenge in her voice sent heat through my chest. So I kissed her. Not gently this time. Not hesitant. My hands slid up to the back of her neck, pulling her closer. For a second she froze. Then the control she carried everywhere snapped. Her arms wrapped around me, pulling me against her. The kiss deepened instantly. Warmer. Hungrier. Her hand moved to the small of my back, holding me there like she had no intention of letting go. When she finally broke the kiss, both of us were breathing harder. Her forehead rested against mine. You're dangerous, she murmured. Why? Because you make me forget the world exists. I smiled slightly. Good. That night we didn't go home immediately. Instead, we ended up on the rooftop terrace of the building. The city stretched endlessly around us, lights, traffic, distant sounds of music and laughter. Adrianne stood beside me, leaning on the railing. Quiet. Thinking. I watched her for a moment. Then said softly, You're doing it again. Doing what? Trying to solve everything alone. She turned toward me. You married a very stubborn woman. I noticed. She stepped closer. So did you. Her fingers slid gently into mine. You challenged me more than anyone I've ever known. Good. She laughed softly. Most people don't say that so confidently. That's because most people don't love you. Her expression changed instantly. The confident CEO disappeared, leaving just Adrianne, the woman I knew in quiet moments. She lifted my hand and kissed my knuckles slowly. You love me like I'm not impossible. You're not impossible. Oh, I definitely am. I stepped closer. So am I. Her eyes dropped to my lips again. And that look still made my heart race like the first day we met. She kissed me again. Slow this time. Gentle. The kind of kiss that feels like a promise instead of a spark. When she pulled back, her voice was quieter. Stay with me tonight. I always do. I mean here. I looked around the empty rooftop. Under the stars? Yes. I smiled. Okay. We sat there for hours. Talking. Laughing. Sometimes just sitting quietly together. At one point Adrianne wrapped her coat around my shoulders. You're cold, she said. I'm fine. You're terrible at lying. I leaned my head against her shoulder. And you're terrible at resting. She kissed my hair softly. Maybe we balance each other. Maybe we do. The wind moved gently across the rooftop. And in that moment, I realized something important. Love with Adrianne wasn't calm. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And real love doesn't make you smaller. It makes you stronger. 6 months later, the company launched the campaign. It was the most successful project in the agency's history. The board celebrated. The media called Adrianne a genius again. But the moment that mattered most wasn't the launch party. It happened later that night. When we returned home, the apartment was quiet. The city lights glowing through the windows. Adrianne walked toward me slowly. You know what the best part of today was? What? She brushed her fingers along my jaw. You. Me? You stayed. I smiled. Of course I stayed. Her voice dropped softer. You still choose me. Every day. She kissed me again. Slow. Certain. The kind of kiss that felt like coming home. And in that moment, I realized something else. The first time I met Adrianne Vale, I forgot how to breathe. But now she was the reason I remembered how. Every single day. If loving Adrianne Vale taught me anything, it was this. Strong women don't break easily. But when they do, it's never quiet. The trouble started on a Thursday evening. A charity gala. One of those events where the city's most powerful people gather in expensive suits, drink champagne, and pretend they're not secretly competing with each other. Adrianne and I arrived together. And as usual, the room reacted. Not dramatically, but noticeably. People moved slightly closer. Eyes followed her. Adrianne Vale had that effect everywhere she went. She was wearing a deep black suit tonight instead of a dress, sharp, elegant, confident in a way that made it impossible not to look at her. Her hand rested lightly on my lower back as we walked inside. That small gesture always grounded me. It meant I was hers. And she wasn't shy about showing it. For the first hour, everything was normal. Conversations. Business introductions. Polite laughter. Then someone approached us. A woman I recognized immediately. Tall. Elegant. Dark red dress. And eyes that looked directly at Adrianne. Clara Montrose. One of the most influential investors in the media industry. Anne. Adrianne's ex. I felt Adrianne's hand on my back go still. Clara smiled smoothly. Well, she said softly, this is unexpected. Adrianne's voice remained calm. Clara. The two women looked at each other with the quiet intensity of people who had history. Clara's gaze moved to me. And this must be the woman who finally convinced Adrianne Vale to get married. I smiled politely. Elena. She shook my hand. But her eyes flicked back to Adrianne almost immediately. You always had excellent taste, she said lightly. The tension in the air thickened. Adrianne's joy tightened slightly. We're not doing this tonight. Clara laughed softly. Oh, relax. I'm not here to cause trouble. Her gaze returned to Adrianne again. I'm just surprised. About what? Adrianne asked coolly. Clara tilted her head. That you let someone close enough to matter. The comment landed like a spark in dry air. Adrianne didn't respond. Instead, she took my hand. Firmly. Enjoy the evening, Clara. And she led me away. But something had shifted. I could feel it. Adrianne was quieter after that. More controlled. Which usually meant she was holding something in. Later that night, we stepped onto the balcony outside the ballroom. The city lights glittered below us. I leaned against the railing. You dated her. Adrianne sighed softly. Yes. Serious? Yes. How serious? She looked at me. 5 years. I blinked. That's a long time. It was. I hesitated. Do you still? No. Her answer came instantly. Too instantly. Which meant something still lingered. Not love, but unfinished emotion. She noticed the look on my face. Elena. I'm fine. You're not. I turned away slightly. 5 years is a long history. Her voice softened. But it's not my present. The wind moved through my hair. Still, the jealousy burned quietly in my chest. I hated the feeling, but I couldn't pretend it wasn't there. She knew exactly how to push your buttons, I said. Adrianne stepped closer. Clara enjoys psychological games. And did they work on you? She shook her head slowly. No. I looked at her. Then why did it end? The silence lasted a long moment. Then she answered quietly. Because she loved the idea of being with someone powerful. Her hand lifted, brushing gently along my jaw. But you. Her thumb traced the edge of my lip. You love me. My chest tightened. That's different. Yes, she whispered. It is. But the night wasn't finished with us yet. When we returned inside, Clara was still there. And this time she walked straight up to me. Not Adrianne. Me. Can I borrow Elena for a moment? Adrianne's eyes sharpened instantly. For what purpose? Clara smiled slightly. Conversation. Adrianne looked at me. I nodded slowly. It's fine. Her gaze lingered on Clara a moment longer. Then she stepped away. Clara and I moved toward the quieter side of the room. She studied me carefully. You're brave. For marrying her? For challenging her? I frowned slightly. I don't challenge her. Clara laughed softly. You absolutely do. She leaned closer. Adrianne doesn't fall in love easily. I know. She also doesn't forgive betrayal. My stomach tightened. What are you implying? Nothing, Clara said smoothly. Just be careful with her heart. Before I could respond, Adrianne appeared beside me again. Her expression calm, but her eyes sharp. We're leaving. The car ride home was silent. The tension between us thick and heavy. Finally I spoke. She warned me about hurting you. Adrianne exhaled slowly. Of course she did. Why? Because Clara believes everyone eventually betrays everyone. I looked at her. Do you? Her answer came quietly. No,